Teamwork. Welcome everyone to a Saturday with Clear Mountain. An important point, we got our disco ball back, so it's a big plus, thank goodness. Can we have 3 sadhus for, yes, the disco ball, but mainly for Ajahn Kovilo being safe and healthy and well? Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And we've gotten so many people saying that we should take rides in the future, so duly noted. We're joined today by Ajahn Kachana, who's a dear friend and mentor of ours, and Ajahn Kovilo will give more introduction in a second. Ajahn Kachana's knees aren't so good, so we're all sitting in chairs today. And just a few standard announcements. The first I will pass to Gary.
Thank you. It's for the use of not only the disco ball, but this whole space, which is provided to us for free by the cathedral across the parking lot. And in gratitude to them, we have put up a Dhamma box for anyone who'd like to express that financially. And that would be very helpful to them. And I think they'll receive it warmly.
Thank you. Additionally, our thermostat's broken, so it's kind of cold. So if you all need to just cuddle up to each other, it's okay. We next week we'll be doing a deep clean of an inventory. So we'll have a chance to, if you want to help out after the gathering next week, there'll be a chance to kind of just consolidate our Saturday setup, which is so beautifully put together every week for our benefit. And the week after next, the 26th, we'll be in Blodell Hall again, or on the back of St. Mark's. So every now and again, we're there instead. And we'll be joined by the Pasadi Vihara nuns that week as well. And it's Songkran today, which is Thai New Year, or tomorrow, which is Thai New Year's, but we'll elaborate more on what that means at the end of this gathering.
And I think Kate Davies might have a small little announcement. Here she is, second row. Thanks,
Thank you, Ajahn. Just to mention that there'll be an informal meetup after the formal session today of Rob's Mob, the book group that's studying Rob Babea's book, Seeing That Frees. And maybe we can just gather, I don't know, maybe just close to the stage over there. And then if there's enough people, we can find a room to go into afterwards. Okay, thank you.
And we may want to designate that for around 11:15, so there's time for the Songkran first. Yeah.
Great. So this coming week is the final week of our winter retreat. And last week we had an extended meditation time on Zoom. So for those who don't know, we have this coming week as well, we'll have extended Zoom meditations. So if you haven't heard of this before, it's a really cool thing. You basically go on Zoom like it was some kind of meeting, but rather than it being a boring meeting, you get to sit there totally silent and just meditate with a bunch of really cool people. So, and as I said last week, we've extended the time to 10 hours per day. And we'll shift up the time a little bit. So we'll actually start, the first long chunk will be from 3 a.m., 3 to 8 a.m. So, and then we've got a 3-hour session in the middle of the day, 10 to 1, and then 3:45 to 5:45. But please don't feel, if you can come for, we do have people who are sitting for all of those hours. One of us will be there for all of them. But also if you just have a little bit of time, we have people who've got a lunch break. You can come for 10, 15 minutes, a half an hour. Seen people have come from their cars. So just however much you can join is great. So with that, introduce Ajahn Kachana. So Ajahn Kachana is one of our dear Dhamma brothers, ordained at Abhayagiri Monastery, as I did. His parents, Jean and Carl Myers, come on a regular basis. There's Jean, and Carl's hiding somewhere in the back. Yeah. So they come all the time. And Ajahn Kachana Yeah, started off, their whole family's very spiritual, practicing the Eknath Eshwaran tradition for many, many years. Ajahn Chah is very smart. He got his PhD from Berkeley in physics, graduated in May of 2006. And then in June, he went to ordain at Abhayagiri. And then he's been there basically the whole time. When I came there, he was a novice. So we've been friends since then. And for the last several years, I think since 2019, he's been living at our British monasteries, and he's been helping out as senior leadership of Chithurst and this past Vasa at Amaravati, our past winter retreat. So very happy to have you here, Ajahn. And we can do some chanting together. Page 46, the highest blessings.
Thus have I heard that the Blessed One was staying at Savatthi, residing at the Jeta's Grove, in Anathapindika's park. Then in the dark of the night, a radiant Deva illuminated all Jeta's Grove. She bowed down low before the Blessed One. Then standing to one side, she said, Devas are concerned for happiness and ever long for peace. The same is true for humankind. What then are the highest blessings? Avoiding those of foolish ways, associating with the wise, and honoring those worthy of honor. These are the highest blessings, living in places of suitable kinds, with the fruits of past good deeds, and guided by the rightful way. These are the highest blessings, accomplished in learning and craftsman skills, with discipline highly trained, and speech that is true and pleasant to hear. These are the highest blessings, providing for mother and father's support, and cherishing family, and ways of work that harm no being. These are the highest blessings, generosity and a righteous life, offering help to relatives and kin, and acting in ways that leave no blame. These are the highest blessings, steadfast in restraint, and shunning evil ways, avoiding intoxicants that dull the mind, and heedfulness in all things that arise. These are the highest blessings, respectfulness and being of humble ways, contentment and gratitude, and hearing the Dhamma frequently taught. These are the highest blessings, patience and willingness to accept one's faults, seeing venerated seekers of the truth, and sharing often the words of Dhamma. These are the highest blessings, ardent, committed to the holy life, seeing for oneself the noble truths, and the realization of Nibbana. These are the highest blessings, although in contact with the world, unshaken the mind remains, beyond all sorrow, spotless, secure. These are the highest blessings, they who live by following this path know victory wherever they go, and every place for them is safe. These are the highest blessings. Okay. So next is a time for meditation. Good to, just to settle into the physical posture. Find a posture where you can sit, comfortably for about 20 minutes or so. And then also to just sit here and let the power of what we just chanted, just let that resonate for a bit. Let it sink in. When we begin meditation, it is helpful to pay attention to the physical posture. We want to be sitting in a way that is both upright and relaxed. One can imagine a fine thread gently lifting up the crown of the head and then allowing the rest of the body to relax around that support. We cultivate a relaxed yet upright posture in order to encourage the mind to develop similar qualities. Body and mind are connected. And one of the most essential, most useful points of contact is mindfulness of breathing. And so when we sit with the body upright and relaxed, breathing can become one of the most prominent sensations. And we can observe, what does it feel like to breathe in? What does it feel like to breathe out? With the in-breath, we can observe the sensation of breath flowing through the nose, through the throat, the chest rising, the belly expanding. And then with the out breath, the body and chest sinking a bit, and the reverse flow of air, now warmer through the throat and nostrils. In addition to these physical sensations of the breathing, breathing is also an energetic experience. When we breathe in, the whole body-mind system energizes, brightens, rises up, awakens. And as we breathe out, the whole body-mind system settles, soothes, calms, relaxes. And with attention and with practice, one can notice that while the physical sensations of the breathing are mostly confined to the areas of the body that we imagine moving when we breathe in and out, but the energetic experience fills the entire body. You can observe what it feels like breathing in and out of your hands. How do they change with the in-breath and the out-breath? And even if the answer is, well, I can't tell the difference, even that level of discernment is helpful. We're investigating the experience of right now in a non-theoretical way. And there isn't this right answer here. How does that feel? Or you can try the legs and feet, which for some reason are a bit easier for me to discern the energetic experience of breathing. What's different about the experience of the feet, breathing in and breathing out? And again, there is no right answer. In a way, the right answer is the quality of attention that we cultivate by asking the question and maintaining an interest in it. Because the experience of the breath just keeps changing. If we're aware, this breath is not quite the same as the last one. And what we're doing here is learning to cultivate a relaxed, precise attention. Being able to maintain a continuity of mindfulness without stress or tension. Simply here with the experience of the body and the experience of the mind. And as things settle, we can widen awareness to include the entire body. How does the entire body feel breathing in and breathing out? What's the difference between the two? My teacher, Ajahn Pasano, appreciates the way that samadhi, usually translated as concentration, but in Thai, it's translated as the firm establishment of the mind. So samadhi is not always focused on a single point. The mind can be firmly established in the experience of the whole body. And for some people, this is easier to maintain than trying to doggedly stick the attention at a single point. The The Buddha likened the firmly established mind to a solid stone pillar, 4 meters into the earth and 4 meters above it, a meter or 2 in diameter, not moving. And we can use that image in our understanding of staying with the experience of breathing in the entire body.
If you would like to join in the invitation for the Dhamma talk, you may turn to page 124. As always, the following is optional, but we can start by bowing 3 times. So we can do that now. Brahma chaloka dipati sahampati katanjaliana diwaram maya chata santi dasatta Parajajatika Desetu Dhammang Anukam Bimang Bhajang.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namassami. I'm very glad to be here at the Clear Mountain Monastery project. I've known Ajahn Kovilo for as long as he's known me. And just a very good friend. And Ajahn Nisabo also visited Abhayagiri in his early years as a monk. So I've known both of them for quite a while. And I must say, I'm somewhat impressed by their willingness to go start a monastery. I have no such ambition. So, yeah. So far this morning, we chanted the Mangala Sutta. That's the Buddha's discourse on the highest blessings. And then we sat in meditation for 20 minutes. And what should we say? At least myself, I've heard that I'm not going to try to guess how many 100 times I've chanted the Mangala Sutta. But this time, as I was, for whatever reason, you heard the words again and just recognized how powerful they are. And then, with meditation to settle the mind. So much to talk about, but also so much just to stay still. Because, this is not, ultimately, words will never satisfy us. And so that much to be said for wordless silence as well. But this being a Dhamma talk, I have to say something. So, so I guess the themes about just how to, maybe I'll say a bit more about further steps in meditation. I'm used to doing a hour-long guided meditation at Chithurst, which I'd never used that form before. And, as a monk of 10 Vasa, they really like it if I take my turn to give the hour-long guided meditation. And I've discovered that I love it. My mind is much better when my mind meditates much better when I'm telling other people how to meditate than it does when I'm sitting by myself. But 20 minutes is a bit short. So, but I can say a little bit about maybe I'll say a little bit about where I would go from there if I had more time in that guided meditation. And then we'll see if it can transition into sort of how do you use that, how do you apply that stillness to ordinary life? See how we do about that. So starting, yeah, so working with those qualities of attention to the whole body, being with that energetic, the awareness of the energetic experience of breathing, and then expanding that to the whole body. One simple thing is just working with using that to work with the hindrances of either restlessness or sloth and torpor. Because if you're restless, it can be very helpful to pay more attention to the out breath, because that's what soothes and settles the mind and body. And so if you put more attention there, that will have a greater effect. Whereas if you're tired, well, if you want to go to sleep, do that. But if you're trying to meditate, do the reverse. Pay attention to breathing, put more attention on breathing in. And that will naturally energize the body and mind, which is what you want. So that's a helpful way just to use the natural qualities of the breath to, help stabilize the experience of body and mind. And what often arises when you've stayed present with that breathing for a while is on some form of well-being. It can have a physical component, some pleasant sensations in the body associated with the breath, or it can be purely a more mentally oriented happiness. But in a way, it's just the mind. Finally, we lug the world around on our shoulders most of the time, and when we finally set it down, the mind just breathes a sigh of relief. That's for right now, you're not thinking about all the problems that you have, or all the problems you think you have. And just being with the simple experience of breathing in and out. And so it can be helpful to, when that sort of joy or well-being comes up, it can be helpful to consciously allow that to pervade the body. Because what can happen is that you get excited about it. Wow, I have, I'm getting really happy right now, or there's this, fascinating energetic sensation. And you think, wow, my meditation is going really well. And you think about, well, is this going to happen next week? Or whatever happens there. And so you start proliferating, and then, 10 minutes later, you realize, hey, wait, where'd that go? But so what I would suggest is and this comes from the Buddha. I mean, I quoting the Buddha's own advice here, is to drench, steep, fill, and pervade the body with that experience of well-being. I think many people are aware that the body holds trauma. That if you have a traumatic experience, it can get lodged in the body and cause problems. But this is an experience you want to lodge in the body, because if you want to use your body to remember how this experience of happiness, joy, well-being, gladness feels like. Because if you put it there, then even when you're not meditating, it'll be around to some extent, and you can bring it back. So really, letting it soak into the body. This is really good. And it's so, and it's possible and I don't have a whole lot of experience here, but it's possible that this may help with healing trauma. It's also possible that it's also possible that if you do this, some trauma will come up and you might need to get, again, that's a whole nother topic, but it's at least good to recognize that it could happen, and yeah, not to be frightened of it, but you might, again, might be good to get some advice from a senior teacher if it's causing challenges. And so, yeah, letting that well-being soak into the body. And if you want to learn more about this, Ajahn Kovilo is an expert. He's written a book. He's probably already told you about it. But you can ask him, read his book and ask him questions. And then there's another component of the breath that is that in some way I think is even subtler than the experience of the energetic experience that we were working with, and that is the there's the breath, and then what? I mean, just knowing the breath is, in some ways we gloss right over it, but there is any mindfulness of any knowing of breath. Well, there's the breath, and there's this quality of knowing. You can't have one without the other. But the knowing is pretty slippery, so we don't start there. Start with the body, and but it's also and so one of the ways to, but you can use it in a number of skillful ways. One, I spent much of the retreat that I was on during the winter, just investigating. I would experience the breath and get accustomed to this quality of knowing of the breath, and the knowing, one way to sort of observe it is that the knowing state, the energetic of the experience of the body with the breath fluctuates with the in and out breath. The knowing stays put. It doesn't change. Knowing in breath, knowing out breath. I mean, the object of knowing is different. The quality of knowing remains the same. So if you look at what stays the same when you're breathing in and out, what aspect of the breath stays? And when that's established, I mean, this whole time one's working with stray thoughts. I mean, the mind is not the mind. It's rare that at least my mind doesn't have some other thing that it wants to think about. I keep reminding it. Right now we're breathing. But then when you've got what you can do is you can start to use those very distractions as a source of wisdom, a source of learning. Because a very interesting question: which is more stable, which is more reliable? What those thoughts in my mind that keep coming up, or this knowing of the breathing? And every time I look, it's like knowing the breathing is more stable than those thoughts. And at this point, you don't need to really, you might state that conclusion in words, but what you can do, you're looking at which quality wavers more, which is more stable. That's a feeling. You don't have this can be contemplating without words. And you notice, wow, those thoughts, they waver. The breath, what I'm with stays put, the thoughts waver. Right. That's an important realization, because you recognize, it keeps changing. And so maybe I shouldn't trust it so much. That's very big, because, you have, what should we say? Most people who get a physics PhD trust their thoughts a lot. And it can take time to undo that. And it's a very important, very helpful and important realization that thoughts are not a refuge. They can be useful. You can think very skillfully, but even very skillful thoughts are no ultimate refuge. Whereas that quality of knowing looks a lot better. And yeah, as one continues to investigate, you can notice, well, that that quality of knowing, you don't just know the breath, it knows everything else too. And yeah, and it was actually, there's a story where, well, Lumpur Cha, our root teacher, he started out as a study monk. His initial years as a monk were pretty much mostly intellectual study, although he did put a lot of work into learning the monk's discipline. But he became dissatisfied with that because it wasn't putting an end to his suffering. And so he went off he left his studies and went off into the jungle as a what we call a Tudong monk, wandering monk. And he heard about this great teacher, Lumpur Mun, who was the founder of the modern Thai forest tradition, almost single-handedly. And so he and several companions made an arduous journey to track down Lumpur Mun, and they arrived. And one of the most significant teachings that Lumpur Cha received during his time with Lumpur Mun, the one he would repeat again and again, was Lumpur Mun said, you learn to distinguish between the mind itself and the moods of the mind. So that quality of knowing and what is known. When this becomes clear, one can, make observations such that, so for instance, while working with these, we had a circumambulation. Late night circumambulation at Amaravati Monastery, and English winter is definitely cold. And I was under the impression that we were supposed to go out and hats were not allowed. So I put my hat away, but I discovered that my assumption was wrong. Everyone else had hats, but I didn't. So, but I'd been practicing with this, and I thought, well, so I decided to, I had already made the intention to see if I could investigate be able to distinguish between knowing, or between the experience of cold, and the knowing cold. Got out there, and yeah, pretty clear. There's the experience of being cold, but knowing cold is not cold. That knowing is not affected by the cold. And so despite being cold, there wasn't the desire to get out of the cold. I was absolutely, totally with the experience of circumambulating the cloister area 3 times. And yeah, it's like I can remember many circumambulations just waiting to get inside. where it's warm again. But this time, nope. I mean, there was just, and also, I mean, I got a bit excited. Some joy arose, but then I recognized, hey, wait, knowing joy isn't joy either. This knowing, you know, I mean, the joy is there. Just let it be there, just like the cold. So you have both this joy and this cold, and knowing them both. And it's really clear. Knowing is not joy. It's not cold. You know, and so, yeah, I stayed out a few more minutes than everyone else, paid respects at the to the center of the center of altar that it had made in the cloister, and then went back in. And yeah, it's just like, well, okay, warmer now, but I mean, for that matter, knowing warmth isn't warmth either. So yeah, and just so there it is. I mean, this is as I understand it, this is moving in this direction. It's, you know, this is the path to you know, this is sort of where you go if you want to investigate what the end of suffering, you know, what the end of suffering might be like. Yeah, and there's a lot, and we were getting teachings like this, maybe using slightly different words from Longpo Sumedo once every other week. It was, and Ajahn Amaro much more frequently than that. So it's definitely primed there. So that's just some experiences from that retreat, and how we can hold these things, and how to, where meditation can go. But it's also important to recognize just, being wherever we are in this, you know, with our practice, because I can't do that all the time. No way. You know, those are like the best moments you remember. And most of the time, you know, sometimes it can be pretty frustrating. And another thing that I've reflecting on is our tendency towards idealism, the sense that we know how things should be, and they're not that way, and that's a problem. Again, if you're, with a lot of education, this tendency tends to increase. And there was, I won't name the monk because I'm not absolutely sure who it was, but there was, back when Ajahn Chah, you know, in the late 70s, there was a monk in Thailand, a student of Ajahn Chah, a Westerner, who was having knee trouble. I think much worse than mine. And he opted to have both knees operated on simultaneously, so he could get done quicker. But that put him basically stuck in a hospital bed instead of in a forest. And he was kind of miserable. And so Ajahn Chah went to visit his student in the hospital. And the monk sort of whined to Ajahn Chah, it shouldn't be like this. If it wasn't, you know, if it shouldn't be like this, it wouldn't be like this, was Ajahn Chah's simultaneously gruff and compassionate reply. And that's I think it's a very helpful perspective. It doesn't, in the Buddhist approach, is not about trying to figure out how things should be, but trying to figure out, well, what are the causes? You know, it's very good to first be aware of our feelings about, you know, what things are. If the monk had told Ajahn Chah, you know, I don't like this, that would have been a much truer statement. Ajahn Chah wouldn't have argued with that, but instead told the monk to investigate, well, what's it like to dislike something? How does that feel? You know, go in there, be with that. You know, you can find some empathy for that. it shouldn't be like this does not encourage empathy. You can watch that. Yeah, it tends to put one in a space of judgment. Another thing another aspect is both, how does this, is to look at things in terms of cause and effect. Well, instead of saying it shouldn't be this way, well, what are the conditions that brought it to be this way? How, what happened here? I don't like this. What happened? And that can be skillful, because then you can take the what happened and learn from that in the future. And it can also be very helpful to investigate the forward causes. What is this like, what is this likely to cause? Because, and sometimes it may be necessary to point that out to other people. So instead of telling people it shouldn't be like this, you say, I'm really worried about this because I think it's going to, I think it's going to lead to difficult consequences, probably for all of us, which again is standing on a much firmer foundation of truth than it shouldn't be like this, which again, who determines who invented what it should be? I mean, our culture comes from a culture which believed in a God which determined how it should and shouldn't be. And so in a way, many people no longer believe in that kind of God, but we still keep thinking in some ways that made much more sense in terms of that kind of God, even though we've dropped the belief, perhaps. So again, it's helpful to notice, why do I keep thinking in terms of should and shouldn't? Well, look at the causes of that, really skillful. And then we can perhaps begin to shift this habit. And also when it does shift, recognize how much less suffering there is. So there's, again, you can, because it doesn't take away the pain of life, not at all. In fact, it might even be more painful. Sometimes it shouldn't be like this as a way of distancing ourselves from pain. But instead, if we're empathetic, if we're willing to experience pain, that's more genuine. We can touch our hearts, and we can touch the hearts of others. So again, by now I seem to have plenty of words, but it's time. But the clock says that it's time for questions and answers, and I really appreciate questions. So I will stop here. And how do we do the questions?
Andamayang Dhammakataya Sadhu Karang Dadama Se.
Sadhu, 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 anumodami. Thank you, Ajahn. Ajahn Kachana's with Longpur Sumedho, as he mentioned, for the winter retreat, and you can feel Longpur Sumedho's words and teachings kind of echoing through. It's an honor. So we have a chance for Q&A, like Ajahn Kachana said, so just raise your hand and we'll run the mic over to you. And if you're on Zoom, you can raise your cartoon hand as well. And I think Miles has someone over there.
I'm going to sit for a bit. Ajahn Kachana, thank you for that talk. In your opinion, what's the difference between knowing and like metacognitive awareness?
Oh boy, I didn't get my PhD in psychology. So can you in just a few words say what you mean by metacognitive awareness?
All right, so I'll just say from my experience, it's like the thoughts are just happening and I'm just existing in the dome of awareness around them. And it's like, I just grab, you grab the thoughts where the momentum is, you kind of just grab and become Alejandro in a way. To me, that's metacognitive awareness. Like
Mhm.
that's this, I just existing in this dome of awareness of observing the thoughts.
It sounds, I can't give you a definitive answer. It sounds similar. Where you're, again, it's the Buddha's teachings are about cause and effect. And so one of the ways that you if you're wondering about a given state of meditation, you look for sort in a way what is the next step that this can condition in the path towards the end of suffering. And if it moves towards that next step, it's probably right on, even if it doesn't quite fit. And so where you go from that knowing, a skillful direction to go is in terms of we experience that knowing all the time. Sometimes sometimes we're much more conscious of it than others. But if you can really learn to trust that and let go of other things, so that trusting and awareness leads to a quality of dispassion towards other things, and a skillful dispassion. So you're just less bothered by things. So if I'm practicing metacognitive awareness like that does that for you, I would suggest that that's probably the right track. You're welcome.
Thank you, Ajahn. I hope I can word this question clearly. It is kind of on psychology, but yeah, I'm curious what the balance is between having that awareness mind and really being in touch with our experience. So being in contact with it, like the felt sense of it, because what does it really mean to investigate? Is that being in contact with it, like seeing the texture and the sensations that are associated with what's happening, and how to strike that balance? Because it seems like, from where I stand at least, having too much of a connection with the awareness mind can be really dissociative and just create a distance from our experience. But then also we don't want to get hooked on our sensations too.
Good question. And just noticing that is very helpful. And this is just my own experience. I can remember times when I have deliberately, and I would now say mistakenly, tried to dissociate from experience in some way or another, thinking that would be dispassion or awareness. But when I was out there experiencing the cold, I was totally aware of that cold. I mean, it was not, when other times circumambulating, I'd be trying to dissociate from the cold. I'd be distracting my mind because I didn't like it. But it's like, I can be cold. And I was actually deliberately trying to feel every bit of what it felt like to be cold. I was way more there. And yet that knowing was really strong. So I would suggest that, you can find the knowing that you're looking for is not dissociative at all. It allows you to feel everything in great detail, but at the same time, you have it. I mean, it in a way. You know something else. It's not like you don't believe, oh, this is definitely me. No, this is an experience. Okay.
Maybe we could get a Zoom question. Joseph, we might hold on and let others who speak less speak today. Kira.
Yeah, hello. I was wondering, the respect to distractions, if you have any recommendations for working with especially vivid distractions. So sometimes external sensations I find easier to work with, the cold or discomfort or something, but I'll sometimes find that my mind has left the cushion and it dropped me into a movie of a memory or something. And I find it harder to work with that because observing that, there's a little bit less to be mindful of. It's like I can get further caught up in the distraction. It's hard to know how much to observe it, try to engage with it, or return to the breath or whatever I'm being mindful of. Thank you.
Yeah, again, good question. Yeah, this is mindfulness of breathing is recommended specifically to alleviate discursive thought. A lot of it is, I would say, yeah, it is easier to be with the cold than to be with distracting thoughts. And I still have not found a truly excellent solution here. I mean, that's one of the reasons why, yeah, I mean, takes a whole winter retreat to calm the mind down enough to be able to see these things, or at least in my case. But so much of the time there, if one finds the distractions, yeah, what you want to do is go back to that experience of well-being in the body. Because there, yeah, that's a more can, if that can become a more appealing place than the distractions, they'll sort of fade on their own. But just trying to start out by being awareness, sort of, yeah, aware of the distractions in a way that is not knowing awareness of distractions is not distracted. Starting there is can be challenging.
May I add something?
Yes.
Additionally, Kira, I think just piggybacking on what Ajahn Kachana said about tapping into the bodily energy, like that deeper substrate of experience. If you, I think, want help making that more compelling, if you have cultivated that bodily awareness, just taking to heart that pillar analogy, and if there's a lot of swirling kind of surface thoughts, then sending your awareness down into the earth, imagining roots going down, and breathe into the earth. And you might really find that there's this settling, grounding quality, like a lightning rod, and a lot of the sort of static energy that's leading to those proliferative surface thoughts just bleeds out and grounds. And then you can kind of return to the center, and they'll still maybe be swirling there. Like Ajahn Amaro talks about a retreat where he went through the whole soundtrack of the musical Oklahoma. But it might be very light and kind of become less and less compelling. And it's okay to kind of let it swirl in the background in that case. Or you can put awareness up into the top, sort of above the head in this sort of bright space. And sometimes that will let the energy sort of vibrate out on that higher frequency and get out, and then kind of settle back to the center. And the final thing is just to notice if there's any tension points that arise with the thinking patterns. And often you'll notice there will be, say, tension in the brow or the jaw or the eyes. And if you relax that, then the whole thinking pattern can fall apart as well. Okay, more questions? Steve?
Thank you. I feel like everyone's asking different facets of the same question, which is very cool. In your leading into the meditation, you defined concentration, I think, as stability of mind, but could you reiterate what that was and expand that a little bit versus, an object of concentration?
Sure. Yeah, this is, Ajahn Pasano has a lot to say there. It's really, so in Thai, samadhi gets translated as the firm establishment of the mind. And so the concentration is maybe the best single English word for it, maybe, but concentration, for us Westerners, it's Rodin's The Thinker, like this. That's concentration. And that's not samadhi. So the object of samadhi can be broad. It can be either narrow or broad. But what is essential is that quality of the firmness. But it's a relaxed form of firmness. It's not relaxed precise attention is a trio of adjective or trio of words that I've worked with. And again, our society, we don't tend to cultivate that very much. When we relax, we space out. When we pay attention, we tense up. And thus are our habits.
The way I've been working with those thoughts of I know how things should be and they shouldn't be the way they are, is to recognize the conceit in that and how ridiculous it is. Does that seem skillful?
Yes, it seems very skillful. Conceit is a massive source of suffering.
Thank you so much for the talk, Ajahn. So when you talk about knowing and known, the knowing of the known, I think that's great, and especially the knowing is stable and the known can change. But I wonder if every time we talk about knowing and known, I think of a knower. And then I think, okay, Buddhism doesn't believe in the self, so maybe there is no knower, there's just knowing and known. But I just have to ask, is there a knower?
So one of the rather interesting qualities of that knowing is that you can try to doubt it or turn it into something. But as soon as you start try to doubt that knowing or figure out what it is, doubting the knowing, if you're really paying attention, quickly changes into knowing doubt, and you're right back where you started. And so Lumpur Sumedho uses the metaphor that you can't see your own eyes. And in a way, my own sense is that we look for, when we say knowing, and that's a sort of a verb / noun, and we look at, and when we see one of those, we look for a knower. But that's simply, in my mind, I understand it as being conditioned by our language. And so in a way we're asking a question which doesn't, it may have no answer. But what shall we say? Yeah, it's our language is inadequate to describe the world, and it seems certainly inadequate to bring about the cessation of suffering. And so the Buddha was, adamant. I teach suffering and the cessation of suffering. And throughout the entire 2,500 years of Buddhist history, human beings have very understandably been trying to turn that into a worldview. But as I understand it, the Buddha was not teaching a worldview. There is, in a way, you could say, there is no as soon as there's a view of a world, there's suffering. And so he said, I teach the cessation of suffering. And when you experience that for yourself, you'll know it, but you won't be able to say anything more about it than I can.
Just add a little bit.
Please.
This is a great answer, Ajahn. Thank you. It is tempting to ask when we talk about the knowing, say, who is the knowing? But something that I find very interesting is to ask, where is the knowing? Where is the knowing? And it really does tap into a lot of the other questions, like metacognition in English is not very well defined, but it does suggest a higher order of thinking, almost like, out of body experience, kind of looking down. And the interesting thing about the mind is you can't really place, it isn't. You can think of it as a centerless center, or where is the mind is a much more interesting question. It touches on this aspect of dissociation, is that there is a way to just, really stay with that out of bodiness as an escape route. And that's not what Buddhism is advocating. So much of Thai language, like this word, the strong establishment of mind, the word mind there is actually heart, jai. And you can know from the heart, and that's actually a very different place to know from. So where are you knowing? You can know from behind the eyeballs. And that's, unfortunately, I feel like that's what causes a lot of our face wrinkles and the, constant kind of just contraction of our brow. But you can know from the heart. You can know from a full embodied experience. You can know from internal and external. So where is the knowing is also a really fascinating question. And a really cool thing about Buddhism is that there's not one right answer. It's about what is most useful, and experimenting, like when might it be most useful to come from the heart, to know from the heart? When might it be most useful to know from a fully, very embodied, knowing from the top of the head down to the soles of the feet? Or like Ajahn Nisabo suggests, even rooting further down than that. So having a flexibility of heart there. I think we might have time for one more question.
Hey, Ajahn. Thanks so much for the fascinating Q&A and talk. Just one question about the meditation instructions you gave. We started with the kind of knowing of the breath, right? And then it went more towards the end, you said something about kind of broadening more toward knowing the entire body. I'm wondering if you can say more like when to use which, or what a skillful way to know is, like when to be more like focused on the one thing, and then when to be more focused on or let it be the more broad awareness of the body.
Yes. My sense here is that that's a question for investigation. If I told you I could tell you what works for me, but there's no reason why that should also be the right answer for you. What you're looking for is just, what tends to work, what's effective. Because, and you can list the advantages and disadvantages of each, because the advantage of staying with a relatively narrow focus of awareness is that it can be easier to stabilize that, which is why I suggest starting there in the beginning. But then that the disadvantage is that it can get tight, and also my own sense is that with a broad awareness, one's more likely to detect what you're deluded by. If you stay focused at one point, you can be totally deluded by something somewhere else and you're not seeing it. Okay.
Can we get 3 sadhus for Ajahn Kachana? Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And 3 for Jean and Carl for giving birth to Ajahn Kachana.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Mostly Jean. Sorry, Carl. For those who couldn't see that, Carl just did 3 sadhus. I want to point out how teachings like this on the silent knowing behind and around experience, you can feel it begin to echo up through the whole room. And it's very precious, I think, when a monk can give teachings that let you feel what we're held by in that way. And I also, I think one really meaningful thing is we can, like Ajahn Gachana said, we have such a tendency towards idealism and towards thinking we know what a proper practitioner should look like. And I think one really useful thing about having visiting monks is that you get to see how the Dharma is like light through a prism, and it makes someone, it manifests very differently in different people. I've always thought of Ajahn Gachana's Dhamma as sort of this gentle tea that moves out, and I'm very much a cup of espresso. I think Ajahn Kovila, you might be kombucha or something. I'm not sure, but just really, but you can feel the power and the beauty in it, and I think it gives just knowing that however that Dharma is manifesting in you, if you trust that, like something beautiful happens, and it's very unexpected and often has much to do with what is our greatest weakness. And just so touched to have you here, Ajahn Gachana. Please come visit us whenever, and he'll be here next month and on Alms next week with me for at least 2 days, so you can come see him there. So we will wrap up now, and we'll begin just by doing our chanting request list. So we'll read that, and these are just names we can hold in the space and in our hearts together.
We have, it's a long list because I guess it's 2 weeks worth this week. From Matthias' son for Tuomo, recovering from brain surgery, request for chanting, blessing, spreading loving kindness for soon recovery. From Steve Wilhelm for Vandana Whitney, pulmonary embolism and possible tumor. From Bonnie Duran and Ajahns, Chris Charles passed away last week in car crash, spread merit for a fortunate rebirth and safe passage. From Lillian Kirk for Elizabeth, passed from cancer, please spread metta. From Peter and Ajahn Nisabo, Eli Matkin just gave birth and lost a large amount of blood, spread love. From Sarah and Doug, friend Carol just diagnosed with cancer, spread metta. From Priscilla, daughter Xu Jinfeng in the hospital, would like others to wish for stability for him and recovery. To Eri Salah and Ajahn Thaddeus, anniversary of his passing, spread metta. Jean Meyer's friend for Janiki's surgery this week, wishes for a smooth recovery. Kristen Lee for Steve Phillips, going through cancer treatment, please spread metta. From Sachin Bante Dhamma Rakita, age 70 plus years, please spread happiness and peace. From Eva and Ken for Aunt Kaiko, passed away on April 4th, please spread metta. And for my wife, Kathy, who is currently in rehab.
So that's from under ClearMountainMonastery.org. There's a support page where people can enter those chanting requests. But if you're here in person, then people can say other names that we'd like to bring into the space. German? German. Noah for a good transition. Ellen, healing. Megan and Ann. Will. Michelle. Otto. Kaut. Has cancer. Francesca. So we'll sit with those names for about 30 seconds. So you can pull out your chanting book. If you're on Zoom or YouTube, you can find the link to it in the chat or description. And we can turn to page 33, Verses of Sharing and Aspiration in English. 33. Now let us chant the verses of sharing and aspiration. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, may my spiritual teachers and guides of great virtue, my mother, my father, and my relatives, the sun and the moon, and all virtuous leaders of the world, may the highest gods and evil forces, celestial beings, guardian spirits of the earth, and the Lord of death, may those who are friendly, indifferent, or hostile, may all beings receive the blessings of my life. May they soon attain the threefold bliss and realize the deathless. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, and through this act of sharing, may all desires and attachments quickly cease, and all harmful states of mind, until I realize Nibbana in every kind of birth. May I have an upright mind, with mindfulness and wisdom, austerity and vigor. May the forces of delusion not take hold, nor weaken my resolve. The Buddha is my excellent refuge. Unsurpassed is the protection of the Dhamma. The solitary Buddha is my noble guide. The Sangha is my supreme support. Through the supreme power of all these, may darkness and delusion be dispelled. So now, as usual, we just want to give a chance for anyone who's been here 3 times or less. If you're feeling brave, no pressure, but a little bit of pressure, just feel free to raise your hand and maybe just say your name and how you heard about us, just so we can know you. Grayson, Ajahn Kachana's brother. Thank you, Grayson. How did you hear about us? Welcome. Okay. Okay, so we'll say a few things in a second, but just some other basics. Oh, we have an online, please. Yes.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Luan Souza, and I am from Brazil, São Paulo. I heard about Clear Mountain Monastery through YouTube, watching the lives, actually the recorded lives that are on YouTube. Thank you very much, Ajahns, and I appreciate being here. It's my first time, and it was very, very good.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us from there. We know Ajahn Mudito down in Brazil. Please.
Yes.
Person. Oh, sorry.
He's amazing.
Great. Next. Nicole?
Hello. This is my second time here in the Zoom call, and I hope to come back again. Always have a wonderful time and really appreciate all the wisdom you share.
Where are you located, Nicole?
I'm over in University District. I just recently moved here from West Seattle, so I got recommended from my West Seattle Sangha by Jill Boone, if anyone is familiar.
Wonderful. You're closer than Brazil. We hope to see you.
Yes, much closer.
Come and visit us. Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome. So monastics in our tradition don't use money. Everything here is freely offered. Please take some books in the back. There's name tags as well. There's coffee and food, which a bunch of lovely, generous people brought today. And just really rejoicing in this community coming together and everything that's kind of being cultivated here. Hope people rejoice in that. And
one more thing about the books. I brought some new book. I brought books from Amaravati Monastery. In particular, they said they liked Luangpur Suchito books here, and so do I. I brought a bunch of copies of Unseating the Inner Tyrant. So for those of us with inner critics, it's a good read.
And we brought a little something for Ajahn Kachana. It is hard. There are lots of memes about this, but it is hard. How do you get a monk, or how do you get a gift for somebody who doesn't want anything? But these are some cool monk things, Ajahn. You don't have to look through it right now, but they are cool. They're very cool monk things. Yeah. And yeah, so today, actually, we will definitely have the potluck as usual. And people are actually welcome to do that. But we'll also have another option, which is actually a low-key celebration of Thai New Year, or Songkran. Songkran, this is a big festival in Thailand. Usually it lasts 2, 3, 4 days. And it's a big Thai water festival. So you may have seen videos of people with super soakers taking over the streets, or people driving by in trucks and throwing a whole like cooler full of water on other people and like throwing stuff at, yeah. It's a crazy festival. It's going to be a little bit lower key here. It's a lot colder here. And it's colder here. Yeah, it's hot season over there. So yeah, we'll have the low key ceremony. It's totally optional, but it is a really beautiful way to express gratitude, to bring some level of beauty into our practice. Like we had Gail actually brought flowers along with Nitnoy, and Wanida and Ladawan all help set things up. So basically offering beauty to that which we feel is beautiful, giving some kind of symbolic reverence for that which we want to give reverence to in our hearts and our lives. So Juanita will give a little bit of explanation how to do that, but basically the monks will start by, we'll all kind of ceremonially bathe the Buddha, kind of pouring a little bit of water over the Buddha, and then we'll sit down, and people as they want can come by us and then pour water onto our hands as a way of kind of blessing the robes or the Sangha, the principle of Dhamma in action in the world. And then after us, we'll also have seniors. It's a time to celebrate the elders among us. So we'll have anyone who's 80-ish. Give me a show of hand who's 80-ish, all right? 80ers or close. Yeah, okay. We'll have you sit down after us, and then people can come by, bathe the Buddha, pour some water on the monks, and then be able to bless the elders among us. And no pressure at all. There's a lot of fun food back there. And if you think ceremonies don't want them, I left my religion to get out of ceremonies. No pressure. We've got great food. Feel free to do that. But there's also this beautiful thing coming up here. And so you can feel free to join that. And Juanita, if you want to say anything about how it'll be done.
Happy New Year, everyone. Yeah, Songkran Thai New Year is like a Thanksgiving in Thailand, but it's more of the connected with the temple, the Buddhist as well too. So everyone in Thailand, this is a time that we go respect to the elderly and give them a wish, good wish that wish them healthy and successful and happy for the coming New Years, and the elderly will give the good wish to the younger one who pay respect to them. So, but every involved in our thing, we will start with the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha. So then we will do this. Is what we're gonna do is everyone will, if you would like to join us, we will come to. Can you bring the water over here too, please? Yes. We will come to Piladawan can show you first. Piladawan can show you. So we will dip the water a little bit in here. Please use, just put it down. And then you make Satta Atithana for, oh no. The monk had to do first, I forgot.
Oh.
The monastery do first. The monastery has to, sorry. The monastery have to do first. So Ajahn will do it first. And we can do Satta Atithana and give a wish word to whatever we expect. So, and then we follow by put the water into our monastic that we expect, and we wish them that good health and long live and go to the Bana in this life, something like that. So that's what we do. And when we go follow all the way to the elderly, this is the good chance to pay respect to the elderly and say thank you and say forgiveness and ask for forgiveness. Everything's good here. Ask for the blessing too. And for the elderly, your job is to give the blessing to the younger one. Wish them happy and successful, something like that. Thank you, Ajahn.
Thank you, Juanita. So those who want to bow to the Buddha may do so now, all together, no pressure. And then we can wave goodbye to the people on Zoom as well. By Zoom people, and there's Zoom coffee hour after this, but we can keep the camera on.